Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Ajwritescrypto. Super excited to get into this interview with the CSMO of Algorand, Mark Van Limburger. So a couple weeks ago, I did a tweet because I'm interviewing him on a panel at Rare Evo tomorrow. But since our panel is not a one-on-one like it was last year, I have so many questions from the audience basically asking if you could ask Mark anything, what would you ask him? We have like 60 some answers here. So Mark and I sat down, we picked 6 of our favorite questions. Each of the people who ask a question, you're going to get $50 in Algorand, and we have a lot to get down to, so let's do it.
Let's do it.
We sat down for over an hour and a half here in Las Vegas at the Caesars Palace to answer those questions for you guys. And everybody, your name will be put on the screen when your question gets asked, and each of you I'm going to send you $50 in Algorand for participating. So thank you for everyone who sent in the questions. So Mark, let's get to it. We got some questions to get through here.
I'm excited. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So the first...
How many questions do we have? 50?
We had 65, and we boiled it down to 6. But they're really good questions. And all the questions I have, I'm going to save for tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay. So question number 1 from Mr. Twilight Journey of Chandu. Your name needs to be smaller, bro. His question is, how does Algorand plan to evolve its marketing approach in the next 2 to 3 years, not to only highlight its technical advantages like quantum security and instant finality, but also to create emotional connections with non-technical users, similar to how Android built a massive consumer ecosystem beyond just developers? That's a good question.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, and it's one that I'm really focused on to figuring out the right way to go about this. And of course, part of it is timing as well. Like if you, I know there's a question that comes up later where we're going to talk about this in more detail, but attracting Web2 users, there's a right time for this. And you must have the right technology in place to be able to attract those Web2 users and then create those emotional connections with them. And so this is actually a lot of where the roadmap is currently focused. If you look at our roadmap that we released last week, a lot of the focus was around mainstream adoption. And when you think there's a lot of people talking about blockchain maturity and which are the chains that are mature, like I would argue that like looking at the roadmap of a blockchain will tell you how mature it is. If a blockchain is still very much focused on protocol related items such as scalability and finality and those types of things, well, you know, that blockchain is probably not mature to the point where it can attract real usage and real users. When you look at our roadmap, it is very much focused on how do we basically attract the next billion users? That's really what I want to go after. How do we get to mass adoption? And we already have scalability. We can do over 10,000 transactions per second. We already have instant finality. We don't have to worry about any of these things.
Exactly. There was even a question here that we didn't ask, that we didn't put on the list, because he said, when are you going to solve the blockchain trilemma? And Mark said, we did that years ago.
Yeah.
Which you did.
Exactly.
Which you did.
Exactly. And so when you look at our roadmap, it's a very different approach from like many of the other blockchains out there. It is focused on squarely how do we get mass adoption. And in my view, the way you get mass adoption is twofold. One is you basically remove complexity and you kill friction wherever you find it. And everybody knows there's plenty of friction in crypto. And so all that friction has to go away. And so that's one of the core focus areas of the roadmap. And the second focus area is around focusing on like a couple of use cases that are, in my view, trillion-dollar opportunities, like tokenization of financial products, agentic commerce, self-sovereign identity. Those are massive use cases where we feel we can add a lot of value and where the blockchain is particularly well designed. Algorand is particularly well designed to be able to tackle those use cases. But that's the level at what we play. Like we really want blockchain to be adopted by billions of users, and our protocol and our consensus mechanism and our network is ready for this. Right. So we can now start focusing on removing the friction points and creating the enablers for developers to actually go after that. And then the next thing becomes then, okay, how do you then attract users, and then how do you create the emotional connection? And of course we have a plan for that as well, but we have to get the basic technical elements figured out so that we are ready to attract those users. The worst thing you can do is go too early and then you're just pissing away a bunch of money without being successful at it.
I feel it was a really solid answer to that question. And it's funny because when we first ran into each other at Caesars Palace, you said, AJ, what do you think of the roadmap? And I said, I think you're posturing yourself for a multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure takeover. And you said, I'm not allowed to comment on it. So there you go. That was very funny.
Didn't we have an NDA on this actually?
I think I'm okay. I think I'm okay. We're gonna let that one. Can we let that one slide?
You can let that one slide.
Yes.
You can let that one slide.
Very funny. So the next question here is from our guy Trippy. You can see his question on the screen here. Trippy is a very active member in my community. Trippy, thank you for all you do. His third question entry that he put on this list was, what key performance indicators, also known as KPIs, does Algorand's marketing team focus on to measure the success of campaigns, and how do these differ from traditional marketing metrics outside of crypto?
Yeah, it's a good question. And so I think there's a number of metrics that we look at. Of course, the main goal of marketing is to enable growth and drive growth. And so therefore we look at very closely at growth metrics. Are we able to increase the number of monthly active developers? And as we all know, Electric Capital is kind of the bellwether for this. And so we very closely, we actually reverse engineered like Electric Capital's methodology. We have our own internal dashboard where you can actually track developer activity on an almost day-by-day basis, and we can see how the numbers work. So this is a very important metric for us, is like active developers, monthly active developers, and so we track that. From a user perspective, we of course track monthly active users, and specifically monthly active users through Para. But the second metric that we track very closely as well is monthly transacting users. What percentage of those users are actually transacting on chain? And so, for instance, you'll see that if you look at, for instance, the ratio between monthly active users and monthly transacting users, we want that ratio as close as possible to 1. Right. Okay. And so the specific marketing tactics that we will deploy to actually get people to transact more and get those monthly active users that just open Para but don't transact, to make them transact. And so that's another metric you look at. And then of course we look at community metrics, and this is particular for crypto, right? Like you asked the question, well, what are the metrics that are particular to crypto? Well, community metrics are very particular to crypto. We, of course, community, as we all know, is everything. And so we want to make sure that we track how the community is feeling, we track the growth of our community, we track the sentiment of the community. So these are all metrics that we track. And then there's a second category of metrics that have to do with efficiency, like are we getting the most bang for the buck for every dollar that we spend, right? And so you have traditional media metrics that basically will look at number of impressions, number of click-throughs, and like how much does an impression cost, how much are people clicking through when they see an ad, and the same actually applies if you think about our KOL strategy, because a KOL for us is also a media channel. It's a modern version of a media channel. Instead of paying Forbes to place an ad on Forbes, we pay an influencer to basically educate their users about Algorand. And so we use similar metrics for KOLs as well. Like, are they able to attract an audience outside Algo fam? Because we all love each other within Algo fam.
We can all have our party here.
We're gonna have a party here, but the whole point is to grow the party, right? And so we need to be able to reach outside Algo fam to be able to bring new people in. And so KOLs are an important strategy in that, because they reach out to communities that we are not part of. And so, but then we also track from an efficiency perspective. Well, do we actually see results from that? And we track this very, very closely because we want to make sure we spend the money that we have wisely. And so that's how we look at it. So we look at growth metrics, and then we look at efficiency metrics. And specifically with regards to Web3, of course, the community elements of this are crucial, and are way more important than you would see in traditional kind of marketing Web2 type of environments.
I mean, even for myself, when I first discovered Algorand, 3-4 years ago at this point, I was initially attracted to the community. It was the contagious element of the community that made me an Algo fan member. And then from there, the past 4 years has happened, but that strong core base, the contagious element, so many blockchains don't have that, and Algorand's had it for almost 5 years now.
Yeah, and I think it's so important. And last year we did this Coinbase Quest, right, where we partner with Coinbase to attract new people to Algorand. And so when you had to download Para, then you did this and this and this, and so we saw a huge spike in on-chain usage, but the spike went back pretty much to where it was before the month after. And the reason is because I think one of the things that we didn't do right, and one thing that we didn't do right is we didn't figure out a way to get those new people connected to our community. And so, and when you look at the quest, it says download Para, do a swap, do this, do that. But there was nothing that said, follow the Algorand Foundation or sign up with Twitter to do this, post a tweet or whatever. Like any kind of action that would basically introduce them to our community, we didn't include that. And I think that was a miss because the community is a stickiness. And so we don't want farmers that just come in and like they get paid for doing something. We want people to stick around, and I think the community is so critical in achieving that.
100%. And everybody, shout out to the Algo fam. If you're in the Algo fam, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video. And if you're not in the Algo fam, what are you doing? All the links down below. Give them a follow. Check out their website. Follow Mark. Follow Stacy. Follow MJ. Follow me. This community is an open door and is one of the most, like I said, contagious blockchains in all of crypto, and I'm proud to be a part of it. So moving on to the next question here, Trippy, that was a great question, by the way, is from a good friend of mine, Jason Owen at Envision This. He said, Mark, drawing from your success scaling Android's developer ecosystem, what's the single most critical marketing strategy you plan to adapt for Algorand to onboard millions of new users within the next 12 to 18 months, especially targeting non-crypto audience who are unfamiliar with blockchain?
So yeah, so as you know, with AlgoKit 2.0 then 3.0, we took the point of view that in order to really grow, we have to be able to attract new developers. And if you look at the entire crypto industry, the amount of active developers in crypto is actually very low. Monthly active developers in crypto is maybe 30, 40,000, something like that. It's very low.
Wow.
If you compare that to 10 million Python developers, maybe 15, 20 million TypeScript developers, it's just a drop in the bucket.
And that was, the whole point of Algorand switching to Python and having a multi-language is to get,
Exactly. The whole point was to basically make it easy for those Web2 developers to start developing on blockchain. And so that's a strategy that we've had. And then from a marketing perspective, what we want to do is we want to make sure, from a technical perspective, the strategy is make it as easy as possible, right? Make it as super, super easy. From a marketing perspective is we have a whole kind of funnel approach where first of all, we want to meet developers where they are. And so we started showing up at PyCon, and at TypeScript conferences, at We Are Developers in Europe. And so much to our surprise and delight, we were pretty much the only blockchain there. And so we were the only ones actually fishing in the Web2 pond, surprisingly enough. But of course, we also had the tools. To be able to kind of help them. And so that has worked very well for us. But then the other thing that we started doing is we used to do hackathons, kind of organized by ourselves, and it's very tough to attract new developers to a hackathon that is completely organized by yourself, where there's no partnerships. And so this year we changed our strategy around, and so this year we're going to do far more hackathons than we did in the past, and we're partnering on those hackathons. And so, for instance, the first one that we did this year was in May with Bolt. And Bolt organized what has now become the biggest hackathon in the world. They attracted over 100,000 developers, and we were the exclusive blockchain partner, and we had a specific blockchain channel and that was dedicated to developing an Algorand. And so to me, that was a very, very exciting experiment. We had no idea what was going to happen, but it was a very exciting experiment for a number of reasons. One is the idea to be able to reach out to another community of developers that we didn't have any kind of relationship with, specifically Web2 developers. But the second thing is the AI component of this, because Bolt is an AI system that allows you to build full stack apps using AI. And so the idea that you could actually help developers and using AI to build an end-to-end application on a blockchain is actually pretty cool. And now, of course, you're not going to develop like a smart contract using AI yet. I believe it's going to come, but not quite there yet. Yeah. But what was interesting, when you look at the Bolt hackathon, we had over 500 projects that submitted specifically in the blockchain category, and these projects all look beautiful. And so it used to be the case when we did hackathons in the past that the submissions we'd get a smart contract, or maybe half of a smart contract and a POC around it, but the UIs were always awful, and they were never thought out, and there was never any user experience, and it didn't look slick, and it was basically a highly technical kind of implementation, but nobody thought about the user experience. Whereas now you see all of these 500 projects come in, and they all look like beautiful apps, and the smart contracts may not always be sophisticated, but at least somebody thought through it end to end. And that's where crypto needs to go, right? We need to think about user experience, and we need to put user experience first.
Yep.
And so that hasn't been done enough. And so Bolt gave us the opportunity to really experiment with this and marry these Web2 developers that were mostly front-end developers with some of our own Web3 core devs, and like get them to work together and build something that's end-to-end, looks beautiful, but is also technically very accurate. And so we're going to continue on this path. So Bolt was just the first hackathon that we did, that we partnered with. I believe we have 4 hackathons planned in September.
Just in September.
In September, we have 4 hackathons planned. I think there's going to be one in the US, in Boston. There's going to be one. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to announce this.
It's okay. Yeah, I actually have a follow-up question in the, so many more hackathons this year than before.
Yeah.
As CMO, what is the best case scenario coming out from a hackathon?
So we want to open people's minds. We want people, like, we still see this a lot. When we go to a conference like We Are Developers, people come to us and say, like, what do I need a blockchain for? And what can I do with blockchain? So that kind of basic level of education is still missing. And so by partnering, we can attract a number of developers that haven't thought about blockchain before, and that we can kind of like immerse and educate about the possibilities and opening up the possibilities, and get them to kind of get their hands dirty and play around with it and see what they can do with it. And then we hope that will spark ideas, and that will spark new thinking. And so that's the whole idea. And so we have, I talked to before, we have a whole funnel approach. So the conference is kind of the top of the funnel, if you want. That's like, we meet developers cold at a conference. But then we have masterclasses, and that are organized for absolute beginners, not beginning developers, but beginners in the crypto ecosystem. We have workshops, more detailed workshops that the DevRel team is doing, where they will show you how to build a smart contract from zero to smart contract in 4 hours. Then we have the hackathons, right? Then we go into the accelerator programs. Then we go into incubator programs. And so we're basically holding people's hands all the way from the beginning to all the way to the end, in terms of like helping you build a real business onto a blockchain with all the business models that go around it. And so we have this whole, and this is completely new for this year, so it has this whole funnel figured out from the beginning to the end. And so hackathons are an important component of this, but it's just one part of that overall funnel approach.
And just saying, if I was planning a multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure takeover, I think that's how I would do it. I'm just saying. Just saying. Oh, genius. So this is a question that I've seen a couple times thrown around, and Ali's Men Security asked it on Twitter. He said, "Can we get more Algorand commercials during football season, showing the speed, the tech, the fees that Algo does in other countries?" This is a good question.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, and I've done a lot of TV commercials in my past.
The commercials are great, by the way. The ice cream,
yes.
Classic.
But so when I was at Google, we were doing traditional TV advertising. We've done a lot of TV advertising. We've done a lot of TV ads that ran during NFL football games and stuff like that. They tend to be very expensive. It's probably one of the most expensive, advertising slots you can buy.
I heard it's like, 10 million for 30 seconds or something like that.
That's a Super Bowl price.
The Super Bowl.
That's probably more a Super Bowl price.
Sure.
But still, even if you think about like the playoffs and the NFLs, it gets up there. Gets up there. It's very, very, very expensive. And so and I would love to do those. They're like awesome. They're just absolutely awesome. You get amazing brand awareness and amazing reach and everything, but they're extremely expensive. And so think about like spending $1 million on a TV commercial, like on 30-second spot. That's like, how fast does the money go? It goes really, really fast, right? And so I think it's not the right time. I think that honestly. I think crypto in general is not ready to attract a non-tech Web2 user audience. And I told the example of a friend of mine. I'm not going to say where he works, but a very close friend of mine working for a really big company, and he had to, he owed me like $1,000 or something. I said, you know what, just pay me in USDC. And so he pulled his hair out, and he's working for a tech company. He pulled his hair out trying to figure out how to do this.
Coinbase,
setting up
KYC, waiting the time.
Yes, yes, but like do the bank transfer and then the whole KYC thing with the camera and everything, and then he had to move it to like his Algo account. He had to download Parent, and like just the whole thing was just a nightmare. Just from a And so that makes you realize like we all love crypto and we all like I love using Para and and I think the user experience on Algorand is fantastic compared to the other chains, but it is still friction riddled. Specifically, if you take the perspective of a non-tech user, and so, if we were to put like an ad on NFL, it would be a waste. It would be a gigantic waste of money because 99% of the people that watch the ad are not going to be able to do it.
I really appreciate your honesty there, just saying that. And it like, because when people like point out, what's wrong with this or what's wrong with that, it's not like the people at the top of these blockchain companies, like yourself, don't know the problems that you have to hurdle here.
Yeah.
And the honesty by you saying that illustrates to me, and it should to everybody else, is that this is obviously something you're working on.
But that's what I'm going to say. That's the thing I'm very excited about. We will fix this.
Right.
And so that's the whole point of the roadmap is fixing that problem.
Right.
And so we have a specific plan on how to fix it, and we will fix it in the next 18 months. And so that is what I'm super excited about, because we know exactly how to do it. We know what we need to do. And we have the partners to do it with, like I mentioned before, the partnership with World Chess. They will actually be our partner, and it's interesting because like a partner like World Chess forces us to think non-technically, right? Because if we propose something to them and say like, this is how it's going to work, they're going to look at us and say like, what are you guys thinking? Like, nobody's ever going to do this. And so they basically, so we take this very pragmatic approach, and we're keeping our feet on the ground, and World Chess is helping us do that. They're telling us what's going to pass and what's not going to pass based on how their users will react to this. And so it really allows us to kind of rethink fundamentally how a crypto wallet works, with all the OG values that go along with it, like with self-custody and everything that you want, but without any of the friction. Okay. And that's the goal, and that's what we want to do. And so I would love no more than actually attract the mainstream audience, but we need to have the technology pieces in place first to do so.
Exactly. And even, with the Trump administration right now, things are developing they say they want, blockchain transactions to be private like cash transactions. And, the coins that are on Algorand they are MiCA compliant, and they're using MiCA compliance as a measuring stick for, what's going to be, considered by the CFTC, which hasn't been figured out yet, in case you were wondering. But these are things that we're all going to learn in the next year, and Algorand's on the correct side of the coin. And that's just good for people to know.
Yeah, exactly.
So, perfect. All right. So, crypto X_crypto_1, what has been the most challenging part of your job the past 18 months?
It's not a good question.
I thought it was.
I think the most challenging part to me is how to prioritize, because there is a lot of stuff to be done, right? You want to attract more developers, you want to attract more users, you want to create more awareness for the brand, for the Algorand brand. You want Algorand to be top of mind in cryptos. You want to have a whole communication strategy around that. You want to attract businesses. And so all of these things are all very different, that all require like budget and people to kind of go after that. And so it's a very difficult challenge to try to do all of these things. And so prioritization is like the key thing. And so the way I was thinking about this is that, well, we have to really raise kind of Algorand's profile. That was kind of step one. And so we did that with Can the Blockchain Do That campaign, where we kind of broke out and we basically let the crypto world know, hey, Algorand is here. and we're powerful, and we have never been better than this. And that was kind of step number one. Then step number two is we basically then rebuild kind of our developer marketing strategy, and we talked about that. Is like creating this whole funnel approach, doing much more aggressive with the partnerships and everything, right? That's step number two. Step number three is what's going to come in a month from now, and that's going after retail audience, because obviously, developers want users, and of course users want apps, and so they're two sides of the same coin, and so you can't really do one without the other. And so I think we are on a good path towards attracting a lot more developers and bringing fresh blood into the ecosystem. But the second part is we also have to attract more retail users and get them to experience really the power of Algorand. And so we always talk about instant finality and speed and everything like that, but that translates from a user perspective into like, hey, if I am a DeFi user, my transactions won't fail. They'll pass immediately. So we need to change our language to a language that users will understand, that will correlate to a benefit for them, right? If my transactions don't fail, never. They'll go straight away like this, etc., etc. So I think we're doing that, and so we're gonna create a whole new campaign that's gonna launch in September, which we call ALGORAND'S, and that'll be very exciting.
I love the name, Algoland. Perfect.
That's all about attracting new users, and we've learned from the past, and so we will completely embed them in our community. So we're looking forward to the community, inviting everybody in with open arms, and encouraging them to try all of the great apps that are available on Algorand.
Amazing.
And so that's step number 3. So that's happening in a month from now. So we had to kind of, back to your question about prioritization, you kind of have to phase things out. You have to figure out what's the most important thing to get done right first, and then you kind of phase things out, and that's the process.
Yeah.
The process that we've been taking.
Yeah, and I just must say that I interviewed you a year ago at Rare Evo, and we're having our next on-stage interview tomorrow. And when you first came on at Rare Evo, you were practically brand new as CMO.
Right.
And now it's very interesting having this interview a full year later, and looking back at the year you've had. I must say, wow. Do you sleep, man? Like, do you sleep? Like, I'm impressed, man. I'm not trying to suck up or anything like that, but like, you guys have night and day difference in the past year with Algorand.
Well, we have a lot more work to do. We're not done. We have a lot more work to do. But I'm very excited about where we're going. I think we have a very clear strategy of world domination. And now we're executing against that.
I love it. All right, final question. If Algorand's tech is like the Ferrari of blockchains, why does it sometimes feel like it's parked in a garage with the lights off? And what is your plan to finally take it for a spin so the whole world can see it roar and maybe want to jump in and take it for a ride?
That's Algoland.
Yeah, there it is.
That's Algoland. And so, as I said, it's launching in September. It'll be a 13-week campaign. And every week we'll have a theme, and so it is completely focused. It's not focused on the technology at all. It is focused on highlighting all of the amazing projects that exist in our ecosystem. And so there will be weekly prizes for people that complete quests, and then there'll be grand prizes at the end that people can win. And we're using the blockchain itself to store all of the points that people can collect, and we're even using the VRF to select the winners.
Okay.
And so it is a completely on-chain campaign,
right?
As only Algorand could do.
Right.
And so I think it's going to be something super cool. It's going to be super fun. I can't wait to actually get this launched. It'll be super fun, and I think it'll be very community-driven. People get extra points if they refer people. So we have this whole viral component that's built into it as well. And so, and we hope that, and we're going to measure all the KOLs on how many referrals they'll do, right? So
he just side-eyed me pretty hard right there.
And so we'll measure the performance very closely to see. We're going to count up the number of referrals, and we'll be able to track everything and see how things are going. But yeah, so I think it's going to be a very exciting campaign. We're looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, Mark, once again, thank you for your time. I always enjoy hanging out with you. Always, we always laugh. I just really appreciate, I talk to a lot of people in crypto. Mark is the kind of guy you can say absolutely anything to, and he's an open book. And I really love that you're not playing with your cards close to your chest. You're willing to have these conversations, or you're willing to admit your flaws. You're willing to admit what's wrong to make it better. And I really appreciate that your approach, and I just respect you as a person, and thank you for your time.
Appreciate you, AJ.
Hey, everybody, have a safe rest of your day. Make sure you smash the like, subscribe to the channel, get involved with Algoland. All the links down below. Get rich or get wrecked. Peace out.